All right, ready for a deep dive. This time, we're tackling something everyone struggles with: vocabulary. And get this, our source material is a conversation between Tony Stark and Thanos.
Thanos.
Yeah, the Mad Titan himself. He's trying to up his vocabulary game.
Huh. That's unexpected.
Right. You'd think with all that power, words wouldn't be an issue. But Tony lays out a 12-step program for him. Some seriously good advice in there, actually.
I bet there's some good stuff in there for anyone, really.
Absolutely. So one of the first things Tony brings up is reading. A lot and consistently.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but I know I've read tons, and the words just don't stick.
Right. Just reading doesn't make it stick. Thanos even complains about this. Tony's solution is keeping a vocabulary journal.
A journal?
Not just like definitions, though. He says to use each word in a sentence, something meaningful to you.
So you're not just memorizing, you're making it your own word.
Exactly. Active recall, it's called. There's research showing that the effort of remembering makes the memory stronger.
That makes sense. And being Tony, he suggests flashcards and apps, too.
Oh, yeah, those can be helpful.
I've tried those, Anki and Quizlet and all. Sometimes they feel like a chore, though.
They can be, for sure.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is they use this spaced repetition thing.
Spaced repetition.
Yeah, the app kind of tracks what you remember and quizzes you right before you're likely to forget it.
So it's like tricking your brain into keeping the info.
Exactly. Working with your brain, not against it.
Clever. So reading, journaling, flashcards. What else does Tony suggest?
Well, this one sounds simple, but he really stresses actually using the words you learn.
Like in conversations and stuff?
Yep, even if you mess up at first. The example they use is obliterate. Thanos was probably all about that one.
Of course he was. But yeah, it's easy to just collect fancy words and not actually use them.
Exactly. It's about context, too, right? Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't use obliterate when asking for the salt.
Unless you're Thanos.
Right. There's a funny bit where Tony's coaching Thanos on this. It's like vocabulary boot camp for supervillains.
That's hilarious. But seriously, it's a good point. It's not about showing off. It's about using the right word at the right time.
Absolutely. Precision is key. And Tony even says to Thanos, you know, messing up isn't the end of the world. It's a chance to learn.
I like that. I think people get scared to use new words because they're worried about sounding dumb.
It's a common fear, but it holds you back.
Yeah.
Every mistake, you're actually reinforcing the right way to use it in your brain.
So making mistakes is part of the learning.
Totally. It's like those aha moments. You realize you were wrong, and suddenly it clicks.
Okay, no more vocabulary shame then. What else is on this list?
Well, this one's fun. Word games.
Games, like what?
Scrabble, crosswords, even online stuff like Wordle.
Sneaky learning, huh?
Exactly. And each game works different parts of your language skills.
Right, Scrabble's about spelling, crosswords or definitions.
Wordle even, it makes you think about letter patterns.
So it's like a full vocabulary workout without even realizing it.
Exactly. And hey, if Thanos is up for it, why not us, right?
Right. Okay, so we've got reading, journaling, apps, actually talking, word games. What else?
This one's a little tougher. Tony says, think in English.
Wait, actually think in English, not translate in your head.
Yep. Might sound hard, but it's a game changer. You're processing information directly in English.
Like upgrading your brain's operating system.
Great analogy. It takes effort, but the payoff is huge.
So it's not just vocabulary, it's expanding how you think. That's deep.
It is. And lastly, Tony emphasizes consistency. He suggests like 15-20 minutes a day, minimum.
There's that consistency again.
It's key. It's not about cramming, it's about making it a habit, like anything else you want to get good at.
So far, this is way more insightful than I expected. It's not just about memorizing lists, it's about strategies that actually work with your brain.
Exactly. And we're just getting started.
Before we go further, I want to pause for a sec. We're talking vocabulary, but it feels bigger than that.
You're right. It's about communication, being able to express yourself, understand things, connect with people.
And I bet a good vocabulary helps you learn new things faster, too.
Absolutely. Like having a mental framework to build on. The more words you have, the more complex your thinking can be.
So it's about expanding your whole capacity to learn and grow.
Precisely. And Tony's advice, as weird as it seems, gives us a roadmap to that.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's see what other gems are in this program. So we were talking about actually using new words, but isn't there a danger of overdoing it? You know, nobody wants to sound like a thesaurus.
Yeah, definitely a balance there. Tony actually talks to Thanos about this, and it's kind of funny. He tells him to cool it with the obliterate stuff, especially casually.
Right. Like, can you imagine Thanos at Starbucks? I shall obliterate this caramel macchiato.
It's just not the right context. Vocabulary is about communicating well, not just using big words.
So it's more about choosing the right word, not just the fanciest one.
Exactly. And that means thinking about who you're talking to. Tony encourages Thanos to actually have, like, real conversations with people.
Yes, even supervillains need to chat sometimes. But yeah, you learn so much more from talking than from just reading a definition.
Absolutely. And it leads to another good tip from Tony. Watch and listen. He suggests things with rich language. Documentaries, TED Talks, even Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. Okay, maybe a bit much for Thanos, but I get the point. You're surrounding yourself with good language.
It's intentional immersion. You're exposed to different styles, different ways of using words. You pick up on things without even realizing it.
Makes sense. So we've got reading, journaling, apps, talking to people, watching, listening. This is starting to sound like a whole language learning plan.
It kind of is. And we haven't even gotten to the toughest one. Thinking in English.
Wait, thinking in English, like having thoughts in your head using the language.
Yep, that's it. Sounds hard, but it's huge. Instead of translating from your native language, you're processing information directly in English.
It's like upgrading your brain's software, not just adding a new app.
Perfect analogy. It takes time, but the payoff is huge.
So you're not just learning vocabulary, you're learning to think differently. Wow, that's pretty deep.
It is. And finally, Tony reminds Thanos and all of us to be consistent. He suggests like 15-20 minutes a day minimum, just on vocabulary.
Consistency again, huh? Seems like that's the key to all this.
It really is. Not about cramming, it's about making it a habit, like compound interest. The more you put in, the bigger the return.
I love that. Okay, so we've got reading, journaling, flashcards, using apps, talking to people, watching and listening, thinking in English. Wow, that's a lot.
It is a comprehensive program, but it all comes down to that consistency Tony talks about.
Right. It's not about one big push. It's about those small efforts every day. Like learning an instrument or a sport, you don't get good practicing once a month.
Exactly. It's the small stuff, day after day, that leads to big changes. And even a little bit of time makes a difference.
So no excuses. We can all find 15 minutes for our vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And it's worth it, right? Imagine expressing yourself better,
Yeah.
understanding complex stuff easier, connecting with people on a deeper level.
Yeah, that's a pretty good picture. Maybe someday you'll even be able to, like, out-vocabulary Thanos himself.
Well, maybe not Thanos, but definitely in your own life.
Okay, so as we go through the rest of this, I want to emphasize again, this isn't about sounding smart or using big words to show off.
It's about the power of language itself, expanding your ability to think, learn, connect, create.
Wow, that's actually kind of inspiring. So to everyone listening, remember Tony's advice. Find what works for you, be consistent, and, have fun with it.
Don't underestimate the power of a well-chosen word.
And don't worry, we've got links to all those resources, the word list, the apps, everything in the show notes.
Happy learning.
We'll dive back into those last few tips after a quick break. Okay, so we're back and ready for the last few of Tony's vocabulary tips.
These last few are all about, like, having a strategy, not just learning random words.
So there's more to it than just picking up words here and there.
Right. He actually suggests word lists.
Yeah.
Like the ones they use for tests, SAT, GRE, all that.
Oh, yeah, those standardized tests, they have whole vocabulary sections, right?
Exactly. So those lists have a lot of high-level words that are useful in a lot of different situations.
Makes sense. So it's like someone already did the hard work of finding good words for us.
Exactly. And you can find tons of lists online, in books, everywhere. A good way to focus your learning.
I like that. It's more directed, not just randomly flipping through the dictionary. What else does Tony say?
He brings up conversations again. Even says something about arguing with him, which, knowing Tony, probably involves some pretty advanced vocabulary.
Yeah, arguing with Tony Stark doesn't sound like the best way to learn new words.
Maybe not relaxing, but definitely good practice. The point is, actually using the words, in any context, helps you learn them.
So whether it's a debate or just chatting with friends, the important thing is getting those words out there, right?
Exactly. And don't be afraid to mess up. Mistakes are part of the process.
Right, we talked about that. Embrace the mistakes. So we've got reading, journaling, flashcards, apps, talking, watching, listening, thinking in English, using word lists, conversations. That's a lot.
It is. It's a whole system.
Yeah.
But really, it all comes back to that one thing Tony keeps saying. Be consistent.
Consistency. It seems like that's the most important thing here.
It really is. It's not about, doing a lot all at once. It's about making it a habit. a little bit each day.
It's like anything else you want to be good at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Small efforts, day after day, that's what makes the difference. And even a little bit of time each day helps.
So no excuses. Everyone can find 15 minutes for vocabulary.
Right, and it's worth it. Think about it. Being able to express yourself better, understand things easier, connect with people more deeply.
Yeah, that's a pretty good goal to aim for.
And hey, maybe you'll even be able to impress Thanos with your word skills one day.
Well, maybe not Thanos, but the people in my life, for sure. Okay, as we wrap up this whole deep dive, I just want to say one more time, this isn't about sounding smart or showing off.
It's about language itself. It's about your ability to think, to learn, to connect, to create.
Wow, that's pretty powerful when you put it that way. So, to everyone listening, remember what Tony said. Find what works for you, be consistent, and have fun with it.
Don't underestimate the power of the right word.
And don't forget, we've got links to all those resources we talked about in the show notes, word lists, apps, all that. So, until next time, keep those words